The Bachelor's of Science in Social Work is celebrating 50 years of continuous accreditation by the Council on Social Work Education from 1974 to 2024. In the late 1960s, Dr. Dave Janovy, Department Chair of Sociology and Corrections, championed the start of a social welfare major with its first graduates in 1969. 50 years later, the undergraduate social work major is a cornerstone of the social work profession in our communities, region, and state. In the 60s and 70s, computer chips became available to the general public. The Vietnam War ended, and the war on drugs began, and United States Supreme Court supported Roe v. Wade. In May 1972, thousands of Mankato State students protested the Vietnam War. Students marched from campus to downtown Mankato and effectively shut down the city. The first Mankato powwow was held in the fall of 1973. It started as a way for tribal members to reconnect with their heritage and has become a strong connector between our Native American and local communities.
Dave was instrumental in starting the program, and he talked about how the previous school he was at, Illinois State, had a social work department, and he saw the important stuff they were doing, and he was surprised that we didn't have one here, and so he sort of pushed the folks around here into starting to hire some social workers and having it be more than just a couple of courses in sociology, but being an actual separate program.
In 1970, the program became a member of the Council on Social Work Education. It was accredited in 1974. One requirement for accreditation was to hire social work educated faculty. Our first faculty included Wayne Sandy as the first program chair, as well as William Anderson, Kay Van Boskirk, Betty Botherow, and Vanda Galen.
Preparing for the 50th celebration, I got to go back through the archives. I was surprised to see how many boxes we filled with all of our accreditation documents. One of the fascinating finds for me was the document from 1970 where we applied for membership to the Council on Social Work Accreditation. Then the next set of documents was this little tiny 50-page document that we submitted in 1974 for our first accreditation, compared to this last time in 2008 when I submitted the undergraduate documents only for reaccreditation, or when Dr. Mackey and I did. It was over 1,000 pages.
I was pretty instrumental in writing the first couple after that first one. And then certainly Vanda jumped in, and Paul jumped in, and Debra jumped in, and so we had all of the faculty really involved. And why that was so important was initially it was a standard for a quality program, but later it became an essential for students who wanted to get licensed.
The 1980s brought continued social and political changes. In 1987, after outgrowing its home department, social work became its own department and moved to the current office and classroom space in Trafton North. Dr. Bill Anderson became the first chair of the new department.
I first came in December of 1977 to join the fairly new social work department at Minnesota State. At the time it was Mankato State. I had interviews at a number of different schools, and I liked what I heard from Dave Janovy, who was the sociology chair at the time, and Wayne Sandy, who was the social work program director. I liked how they approached education. The first thing Wayne ever said to me when I got here was, we're teaching adults, not children. Throw away all that pedagogy that you may have studied and think about andragogy, educating adults. And that impressed me.
I remember moving out of the sociology department after 1 year, and I remember just feeling very comfortable in the department and with my colleagues.
In the 1990s, the American Disabilities Act, the Individuals with Disability Education Act, and Temporary Assistance for Needy Families were signed into law. These laws created new opportunities for social workers. This decade also marks the start of mass shootings in our schools. The department also expanded its program activities. In her tenure as department chair, Vanda Galen was instrumental in starting our first Alumni of the Year award.
We'd had a graduate who was a school social worker, but she had been recognized as the Teacher of the Year. And I thought, well, this is important that education is seeing social work's role, and we needed to recognize her.
She was also instrumental in establishing the Social Welfare Scholar Awards,
which was to make an award to the best term paper in the first class. This was an opportunity to say writing is important. You might convince a judge to keep a child out of an institution or approve an adoption.
Vanda organized our first child welfare conferences in the mid-90s. These annual conferences led to a Title IV-E child welfare stipend program, which began in spring 2005.
Vanda had started that program with the University of Minnesota School of Social Work. When she retired, I ended up picking up the child welfare program, and it became a very formal program where we actually were able to offer students stipends who were committed to working in public or tribal child welfare when they graduated.
The first international travel opportunities were offered. Vanda Galen took a group of students to Guatemala in 1998.
We were 8 weeks in Guatemala, a couple of weeks in language schools, and then 5 weeks of learning and volunteering. I remember the school said, okay, you're going to the old folks' home and you're going to serve cake and Kool-Aid. Running from small store to get Tang and mix up our Kool-Aid and get the cakes. And when we got there, they were waiting with forks. You know, we were a little late on the cake.
At the end of the 90s, Richard Winterstein connected with Helsinki Metropolia faculty from Finland and marked the beginning of a successful 20-year bilateral student exchange program.
The whole Finnish thing started with a group of people from Helsinki Polytechnic came to campus to try to build relationships, and I think primarily they were looking at the nursing program, but we got invited. So that initiated some conversation between us and the Finns.
Dr. Winterstein made several trips to Africa to complete research projects. His connections with the University of Fort Hare in South Africa are maintained by Dr. Christine Black-Hughes.
I had 2 different opportunities then to teach at the University of Fort Hare in South Africa. I had the opportunity to do a program evaluation. That study has had an impact on Fort Hare and on other institutions as well.
Bill Anderson and Robin Wingo took students to Bristol, England from 2000 to 2010 to participate in the Social Policy Summer Institute.
From 99, when I just visited the program, till starting in 2000, when we took students there every year for 10 years. We would visit agencies and see how they do things. So we would go to a needle exchange, way before that was a common idea in the United States.
Students have traveled to Belize with Dr. Laura Strunk and to Queen's University Belfast, Northern Ireland.
I got to go to Northern Ireland for conflict resolution and learning more about how the resolution on a societal base, how that was progressing and where the areas where there could be an improvement. I identify as a gay male, came out at 19, and then a year later getting to go and be a part of this LGBT Pride Festival in a whole different country. It was just a highlight of my college career.
As we entered the new century, the 2000s, change was again a constant. The events of September 11, 2001 drastically altered our view of the world. In 2003, MySpace, the first major social media platform, took over the internet. Barack Obama was elected president of the United States in 2009, gun rights and abortion right conversations became more contentious, racial tensions across the U.S. increased, and was brought home in 2020 with the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis. These events refueled social work's commitment to advocacy, activism.
I work in the MTS secondary program in South Minneapolis. And after the murder of George Floyd, when all of the unrest and the rioting occurred in South Minneapolis, fires were set inside of our building. So really everything inside our building was completely destroyed. And so what that provided as an opportunity for us, we were able to come together. It allowed us a really unique opportunity to meet with families, to talk with students, to create ideas, and we really just allowed them to dream big. We have a recording studio in our school building. We have a video production space. We have a podcast studio. We have a DJ table. We have a band room. We have a beautiful art room with skylights, and really just a lot of really beautiful spaces for our kids to be creative and unique.
And a renewed focus on strengths-based practice.
Because of my car accident, it was life-changing. I went from able-bodied to then disabled. I thought my life was going to end at 18 years old. I was quadriplegic. I couldn't move from my neck down. I had a social worker come into my room, and she empowered me. She said, no, your life doesn't end there. There's a different way to do everything that you're doing, and that's what we're going to focus on.
One of the most major milestones for the social work department was the addition of the Masters of Social Work program. The MSW began in 2006, graduated its first cohort in 2009, and was accredited in 2010.
Early on, I looked at various ways that an MSW might be accomplished here. I thought there was particularly some interesting links that we might make with other departments. I had done some very early research about what was going to be required in terms of faculty, particularly adding faculty, to get an MSW program.
There was a time when there were only 2 or 3 MSW programs in the state. It just seemed natural that we could build on the strengths of our program and add the MSW. Nancy Fitzsimmons took over as one of the primary forces behind the actual design of the program. So I did a lot of the political work, not so much the academic piece.
Despite the challenges the pandemic created in higher education, the department continued to ensure that our students had access to the best technology and physical resources. Our classroom in Trafton North was transformed into a state-of-the-art classroom with 4 monitors and ADA-compliant furniture. We moved from the tiny interviewing rooms in the basement of the library to a larger and welcoming lab in Wissink. We have new recording software that allows for just-in-time commenting on interviews.
We had a one-way mirror set up, and I would sit with half the class on one side of the mirror while a couple of students worked on the other side and practiced their interviewing skills. And then we would critique it and probably presume they were real, but we were role-playing. And yet, the next step forward is we're doing digital work. So it's really changed, but the whole idea of helping people learn how to talk to other people.
And Dr. Laura Strunk has developed our very first virtual reality simulation.
Wow. That's awesome.
Anything that can bring the reality of what social work is going to be like when students graduate is vitally important. I always wanted them to experience the realities. We tried to do it with role plays. We do it with group exercises. But something that, puts them closer to what the reality might be, I think is going to be important for their determining they want to stay in this field and how well they're going to perform when they get out.
In spring 2021, the department moved into the College of Allied Health and Nursing. This change provided access to increased resources to support our students, alumni, and community partners.
The dean of the Allied Health and Nursing College at that time was Chris Rutherford. She was very supportive of our moving into her college.
Moving over to AHN put us with people that know what we're doing and understand how professional programs work. I think there's a little more practically oriented stuff that we can do in this new college.
As we prepare our students for social work practice for the next 50 years, our faculty emeriti want you to know what they are most proud of.
Certainly one of the things I'm most proud of is what our alumni do. I sit on the Minnesota Social Services Association Region 9 board. I've been on that board for about 40 years. Most of the rest of the board are graduates of our program, and it's so nice to see that they're out there running agencies and doing important work.
The quandaries that you have as a teacher is you never know what the impact is, and in a lot of cases you can't know that. With the social work students and their careers and their accomplishments, we know that what they are doing is important for the community, for Southeast Minnesota, for the state, and probably for it spills off to many places. We can know that what we do is important because we see the product that is in the communities every day doing the kinds of things that need to be done.
Our department would not be the highly respected department it is without the support of its office administrative staff. We are forever grateful to Phyllis Tiedekin, Missy Manderfell, Marie Worrell, and Rachel Credit. As we look ahead to the next 50 years, our alumni share what they value most about our programs.
Because it was so broad, you could work in schools, but you could work in corrections, or you could work in hospitals, or you could work in whatever setting, name the setting. You know, if you were there wanting, I know that I want to help people. I think that social work is just such a great place to start because there's so many directions that you can go with it.
If I had any words of wisdom for someone coming into this field, I would encourage getting as much experience as possible so that you are able to transition into the workforce and get into the subfield of social work of your choosing. Having the ability to experience different things and use those to help formulate where you're going to go, what you want to do is very, very important.
You grow in times where you are out of your comfort zone. I would also say try to be as active as possible by engaging in clubs on campus, building connections with your professors because they are very helpful. They're open to helping you.
Our faculty who help build the department have words of inspiration.
I was blessed to be part of 16 of them. My hope and expectation is that the program will continue to grow, to be strong, and to continue to produce people who will help bring out changes in our communities, in our people, and in the world.
I hope there will be a profession that says people are entitled to what they need and they should have live in dignity. So I'm going to hope for perseverance.
And a few closing remarks to our social work community.
My biggest advice to students is to have courage. Do what it is that you want to do in your life and be the best version of yourself. It might be very scary and there will be many obstacles along the way. You might be afraid of judgment, or you might even just be afraid of that powerful vision you have of yourself. But you can do it and just charge through, have courage.
One of my favorite ones that they come up with was our logo, and around it they put the words, "Work that matters." To me, that was a very inspirational thing. The things that we do for families and the things that we do for the elderly and for people with disabilities and people with terminal illnesses and all those things, that stuff really matters to me. So if the students can catch that sense that they're going to be doing important work, they go into it because they're committed to this kind of a service, and that's a good thing.
And for all that you have given us now and in the future, our faculty thanks you.